Rosenberg Police. I want to see this too. Seems like my husband was killed. All of our guns were gone out of the cabinet. Does he have a gunshot? I'm sorry, I don't hear you. What's your name? My name is Lynette Phelps.
I won't be your chosen one, I'll just be your fire. I won't be your favorite son, I'll just be what you desire.
What do you think about this part of Texas?
Beautiful. I like Texas. If I had my chance, when I fully retire, this beats Florida hands down.
You get to meet all my people, man.
It's good.
Steve and I are back in my home state of Texas to investigate the tragic 1996 murder of Stephen Phelps. He was a kind 36-year-old man who was a doting father to a 6-year-old little girl, and he was also a lab supervisor.
You know, you read a lot of cases, and you always look for why people get killed. This guy, I don't know. He's a good guy, loves his family, obviously, hard worker, and he's killed in his own house. Probably one of the most frightening things that can happen, I think.
Late one October evening, Stephen Phelps' wife, Lynette, left the house to pick up dinner. And when she returned home, she found him dead on the couch. Stephen had been brutally beaten and shot 3 times in the head. His rifles were missing, and his daughter was still asleep in the bedroom nearby.
I think when he started struggling, what's going through his mind is not just worry for himself, but for his baby.
But how does the daughter not hear some type of a disturbance or the gunshots? It makes no sense.
The police have always questioned Lynette's story and wondered if she might have been involved, especially after they learned that Stephen had been secretly recording her phone calls with the man she might have been having an affair with.
Well, you teasing me, I think. Oh, my God. Just nibbling on me a little.
20-some years later, and we've got a big question mark as to really what happened here.
It takes a really special kind of monster to murder a man as sweet as Stephen Phelps. Whoever killed him needs to be brought to justice. These are the kinds of cases we just have to solve.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
I've chosen cold cases from across the country and teamed up with the best detectives to solve them. We're more determined than ever to bring justice to these victims. I think all the cops here wear cowboy hats.
No kidding. Cowboy boots, too?
This case is 24 years old, but we're treating today like it's day 1 of the investigation, and I am so excited to work with the Rosenberg Police Department.
Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Good to see you
James
again.
Murray.
Mr. Steve.
James Murray.
How you doing,
Steve?
James? Steve?
Good. Sergeant Guetta.
Hi, Sarah. Steve.
Nice to meet you.
Detective Freeman.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Are y'all excited?
We are.
Very excited.
Maybe we'll have some good luck this week.
I think so.
Let's get started.
I've worked several homicides, but this is my first cold case that I've ever worked. It just presents a whole new set of challenges. We don't have DNA, we don't have the gun. It's a lot of unknown.
Back when this happened in '96, were you here then? You're too little.
I was born in '88, so
Jeez.
having Kelly and Steve here with us, having that experience is extremely helpful.
Okay, Suni, you want to start with telling us a little bit about our victim, Stephen Phelps?
He was just a hard worker, worked in Houston, had a very good job, was a supervisor. His wife was a stay-at-home mom.
They look so young and happy, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like he was a very, very proud father.
Really good guy. You couldn't find anybody to say anything bad about him. Stephen, he's a young father. He's got a young child. Just the thought of this happening to me and he being away from my daughters like that, that's what made me want to get some closure in this case. Somebody took this little girl's dad away.
How did all this get started?
So on October 16th of 1996, sometime around midnight, the police department got a phone call from a lady named Lynette Phelps. She's calling, reporting that she left to go get some hamburgers, comes back home, and finds her husband, Stephen Phelps, dead on the couch. Her 6-year-old daughter, Lindley, was in a bedroom asleep at the time. Our officers respond. They find the victim. He's laying face down on the couch. There's a pillow over his head with bullet holes going through the pillow. Looks like he's been shot 3 times in the back of the head. He's got some wounds to his forearm that look like defensive wounds. There's a gun cabinet that's open. There's a back door that appears to have been left unlocked.
Bloodstains suggest that Stephen was initially beaten near the door, then dragged to the couch and shot 3 times in the head with a .22 pistol. Police believe that the suspect then took the rifles from the gun cabinet in an attempt to make it look like a burglary gone wrong, which it did until investigators discovered there was more to the story.
When they talked to Lynette initially, she made it seem like they were just a perfect couple, but the detectives at the time started talking to everybody that knows Stephen, and one of the people that tells them that Stephen suspected his wife was cheating on him. He bought a recording device to tap the phone line. In doing so, he confirmed that she was talking to other men. Police go looking for this device. They end up finding it in the attic.
So when they're going through all the tapes, what do they hear?
They find a conversation with Lynette and Alfred Hinton.
When you get ready, I'll pick up your stuff. We got a house down there. I'll keep it open.
Where's the clause? There must be a hidden clause.
No hidden clause, no requirement. I told you I didn't like sex.
That's a pretty flirting tape going on.
It definitely gives the impression that there's big issues going on with the marriage.
But as far as we know, neither of them actually contacted a divorce lawyer.
No.
Okay.
Lynette denied having an affair with Alfred, but she did admit having sex with him after Stephen's death. Either way, the way she lied about her less than perfect marriage and then her kind of sketchy alibi made her a prime suspect.
Let's start with the big picture. We can all agree an unhappy marriage.
Right.
For what reasons?
Her partying activity or extramarital activity.
She would leave for days at a time without him knowing where she was and when she was coming back.
How about life insurance?
I mean, she's in line for at least $350 grand.
As far as we know, Stephen wasn't actively pursuing a divorce, but if Lynette thought that he was, then it's possible that the life insurance payoff became her motive.
What about the gun?
There are some guns that were pawned. We believe those to be the stolen guns from the murder scene.
And you know that pawn shop, huh?
Yes, ma'am. I know the pawn shop well.
The biggest break in this case occurred 2 months after the murder, when Stephen's stolen guns turned up in a local pawn shop. The man trying to pawn those rifles was a local drug dealer by the name of Stacy Booker. He has since passed away, but at the time he was friends with Lynette Feltz, Stephen's wife.
Mr. Stacy Booker, and they call him Big Boy. What was his criminal history? Did he have any violent priors?
There's one robbery back in '91. That's the only violent crime I see on there.
And his explanation when he's caught with our murder scene missing guns, what?
And he says that she gave them to him.
Lynette gave me the guns. How does he respond to questioning when it gets to the questions about Lynette?
He tells the detectives that he knows information but doesn't want to give it to them.
When she was questioned, Lynette denied giving Stacy the guns. So did Stacy kill Stephen and then when he was questioned implicate Lynette to take the heat off of him? Did Lynette kill Stephen and just use Stacy to get rid of the evidence? Were they in it together, or is there another possibility?
Okay, let's put up Mr. Alfred Hinton.
He's almost 60 years old at the time of the murder.
Because she's how much younger than him? 30 years.
Half his age.
Alfred Hinton is the man that Stephen recorded flirting with Lynette. He was married, but he spent a whole lot of time on his ranch where he also employed and housed Stacy Booker. Stacy is the one that introduced Lynette to Alfred.
The biggest thing with Alfred is he distances himself from everybody and makes it seem like he doesn't really know them, including Lynette, who we know he's had conversations with.
And the night before, she's staying in his house.
Stephen knew about Alfred. Does he worry about his wife finding out? I don't know. You know,
to
maybe,
the degree that he would kill somebody?
Yeah, maybe
he
Lynette's filling his head
knows?
with, he knows about us.
So you're saying if he's got a motive, then maybe his wife's going to find out.
If Alfred was having an affair with Lynette, would he have wanted to silence Stephen to hide his affair? Was he the one that gave Stacy the guns? Is it possible that all 3 of our suspects are involved?
We got a lot of questions that need answers.
That's a lot of good places to start, though.
Peeking out from the porch, wondering if he's coming back. Daddy's walked out and now Mama's just a wreck.
When was it you called Mona?
3 weeks ago. I explained to her what we were doing with the case, that it was being reopened, and she was very receptive to the idea.
Okay.
Stephen and Lynette's daughter, Lindley, was raised by Lynette. And today, Lindley and Lynette still live together in a neighboring county. We don't want to get in the middle of that relationship right now. But we do want to meet with Stephen's sister because she's the person who has been fighting for justice for Stephen all these years, and we want her to know that we're going to do everything that we can to try and get that justice for her.
What was Stephen like?
He was my baby brother. Even as he got to be 6'4" tall, he was still my little brother. You know, I was 11 years old when he was born, and we were raised by my dad. And I was kind of a caretaking figure, too, because I babysat for him and changed his diapers and everything from day one. Every moment that I had with him was a privilege. You know, he was really coming into his own, and he fell in love with Lynette, just head over heels in love.
How was Stephen when his daughter was born?
I've never seen anybody so happy. We all were thrilled for his happiness. Didn't expect it to come crashing down so quickly. You know, Steve's dream was being a family guy. I think he was happy with what they had in the beginning, and I guess he was hopeful that somehow they would get through the hard patches and come out on the other side of it. She would be gone for weekends and saying that she just was going out and partying with her friends, and she would leave the child with a neighbor, and my brother would come home, and not only was his wife gone, he didn't know where his daughter was, and my brother he would be panicked about his daughter.
How did Lynette act at the funeral?
Very strange. As I recall, Lynette sat in the front row by herself.
Did you ever see Lynette crying?
I didn't.
How about at the cemetery?
No. I've never been at peace with it.
Your brother deserves justice.
I believe that very strongly.
We don't get victims like Stephen Phelps that often. So innocent and sweet, and a devoted husband and a devoted father. And to be so horribly murdered in his own home, fighting for his life while his little girl was asleep down the hall in her bed. If that doesn't motivate you, what does? Before we talk to any of the witnesses or the suspects in Stephen Phelps' case, we want to look at the physical evidence.
We got Chris Robinson coming in today. He's a ballistics firearms examiner, and Dr. Catherine Hayden-Paneri. She runs the lab now in Montgomery County.
Great. While the pistol that killed Stephen has never been found, we do have the 3 bullets that were all recovered from his head.
You going first, Chris?
Yes, ma'am. I'm excited.
We're hoping that our ballistics expert can use them to help us identify the make and model of the pistol that was used. That could help us narrow down which of our suspects may have had access to that weapon.
Okay, so there were 3 .22 lead bullets. As you can see, the bullets are very badly damaged and flattened out from where they struck the body. Under the microscope, though, I was able to match a few marks called individual characteristics on those bullets. So when I plug this in the database, it's a .22 caliber. We're looking at 4 lands and grooves with a right-hand twist. This gun, the Harrington & Richardson revolver. It's a cheap gun. It can be purchased for probably $50 to $70. So
that cheap?
It is.
Wow.
According to Chris, there's only one revolver that matches the bullets that killed Stephen, an H&R .22 revolver. Unfortunately, that gun is not rare or expensive, and any one of our 3 suspects could have potentially obtained that weapon.
Dr. Paneri, I guess you're up.
Now we want to review Stephen's injuries. The question is there anything that can provide insight into how he was killed and who the killer was?
Mr. Phelps has 3 gunshot wounds of the head. Additionally, he has another injury to the back of his head, which is blunt trauma. And it's right here. He was hit on the back of the head with something at some point. But he also has some patterned injuries on his body. And they actually leave an imprint of the implement that was used to inflict them. There's these central areas here where there's nothing in the middle. Immediately, my thought goes to tubular objects. When someone is struck with a tubular object, when it touches the skin, it pushes the blood that's in the blood vessels directly under the impact site off to the sides, and it leaves little lines on either side of the object. The injuries that are on his arm are about 1/4 to 3/8 inch wide. Could be something like a pool cue or lead pipe.
Stephen's injuries are not unique enough to pinpoint the weapon that caused them, but it is interesting that the killer beat him before shooting him. Was that because they were trying to subdue him, or was Stephen's murder personal?
I've been waiting, contemplating, dreaming of the day that I could make my move.
Our house is still standing, but hoarders live there.
Oh, the dog has to stay in the backyard because it's so bad in the house. True story. There's no place for the dog in the house.
We don't have access to the house where Stephen was killed, but we've taped off a mock crime scene at a similar home. Our plan is to critically examine the events of that night and Lynette's account of what happened that night.
Oh, okay.
So this is it. That right there would have been a wall, and here's that other door.
It's a little bitty room.
There's the couch, that's where Stephen would be. And here's the gun cabinet that we keep talking about with the guns missing.
And he's on the couch, how?
He's face down with his head pointing that direction, with a pillow over his head. The blood, there's just a few little smear stains in the linoleum.
With Stephen's defensive injuries and the blood in the entryway, it's obvious that the attack did not begin on the couch. So the question is, how did Stephen wind up there?
Okay, let's do this. You play our suspect, you play Stephen, and y'all try to reenact what you think happened compared to the couch, the blood drops, the gun cabinet, and all these bruises.
So Stephen comes to the door. I think that he heard something at the garage. He comes to push the door closed.
Because there's a fight.
Because there's a fight right here. He pushed back and it pushed.
Comes back, and he's continually struck 7 times. He goes down.
He goes down.
Turns his head, once to the back of the head. He hits him maybe over the shoulder. And at some point, he either knees him into the gut and just drags him over to the couch on a small pillow, head down. Here comes the gun. Bang, bang, bang. It's over with.
Stephen's killer likely used a pillow in an attempt to muffle the gunshots. What's odd is that instead of bringing the pillow to Stephen, they brought Stephen to the couch, and Stephen weighed over 200 pounds. It doesn't mean Lynette couldn't have committed this murder on her own. However, Stacy Booker was 6 feet tall, 400 pounds, and he and Alfred Hinton both worked on Alfred's ranch, so it would have been easier for either one of them to overpower Stephen.
Lividity is a pooling of the blood after somebody dies. The blood is going to pool down with gravity. According to the autopsy photos, he still has lividity that's showing up on his face and the front of his chest and upper body. And he's laying on his back. And he's been on his back for hours before this photo is taken. So this tells me that this lividity on the front part of his torso is fixed. So it would be most consistent with him being there for a couple of hours, minimum.
If she really left the house at 11:15 and she's calling the dispatcher by 12:03, you're saying
that's inconsistent with the lividity that's fixed on his body. It had not just happened when she comes home.
Lynette claimed that Stephen was alive when she left about 11 o'clock that night, but dead when she got home about an hour later. But the lividity in Stephen's body suggests that he'd been dead at least 3 hours before she called the police. That is huge, and it's a big clue that Lynette's story is not the whole truth.
Suni, why don't you be Lynette?
Okay.
And tell us her story.
She says she walks in and she sees Stephen, and then she says that she notices that 5-6 guns are missing, but there's one in there. She doesn't check him. She walks over here to check on Lindley, who's still asleep in the bedroom, comes back out and calls the dispatcher to let him know that her husband is dead.
It seemed like my husband was dead. What happened to him? I don't know. I thought guns were going out of the cabinet. Did he have a gunshot? I'm sorry, I don't know. You haven't touched him? He's just laying on the couch and you go to pick it up. I don't know.
You've already seen Stephen dead, but you walked right past him and didn't touch him or check on him or anything?
That's her story.
I don't know how you can tell somebody's dead when they're partially covered up and you can't see them and you haven't touched them.
There's a whole lot about Lynette's story that doesn't make any sense. How did she know Stephen was dead if she never even went near his body? Why wasn't she afraid of the attacker that could have still been in the house? And how in the world did she know the guns were missing from the gun cabinet if she never went near the gun cabinet?
And these guns that are missing from the gun cabinet are next seen When and where?
They find some that were pawned by Stacy Booker at a pawn shop.
Lynette may have had a hand in Stephen's murder, but she's not the one who ended up with his guns. We've got 2 more suspects that may have been involved. Lynette Felt's story about the night of her husband's death sure seems fishy. But from what we know, he was a good husband, a good father, and the sole source of her financial support. So would she really throw all that away for another man or for some insurance money?
Hello, this is Mark Sample.
My name is Suni Hugueta. I'm a sergeant with the Rosenberg Police Department here in Texas.
We've read that Stephen was close to his boss, Mark Sample. We're hoping that he can give us some insight into Stephen's marriage.
I know that you were his supervisor at the time?
I was, yes. He's a good worker. He was a good guy.
Were y'all friends? Did he confide in you about anything?
There's a tickle back there about that he had done something to record his wife, and they knew that she was cheating on him or something, but I just don't remember.
Okay, thank you.
Mark Sample's memory has faded after 24 years, and that is understandable. It's also one of the hurdles when you work on cold cases, but we're just warming up. We're going to track down anybody that we can find who might know something about Stephen and Lynette's relationship.
Hello?
We're looking back at the murder of Stephen Felts.
So it's a cold case now, right?
Well, hopefully we're heating it up.
How well did you know Lynette?
A little bit. She used to come down. I worked at a bar there, and that's where I met Lynette.
Was she happy in the marriage?
She didn't say like she wasn't, but always kind of wondered why she was out at the bar.
Did he tell you that he was worried that she was cheating on him?
Yes, he did. He did. She was acting very odd, spending a lot of time away from the house and just, crazy stuff like that, which wasn't normal, to me.
Did you see any changes in Lynette at all over the years you knew her?
Yeah, she went from being a sweet, wonderful, independent person to secretive. She went out a lot at night by herself.
What was that about?
I'm sure she was having an affair or something.
Okay.
Apparently, Stephen was not the only one who suspected Lynette was cheating. It makes you wonder if those secret recorded phone calls Stephen had of Lynette and Alfred flirting were the final straw.
So you knew that they were having some marital problems?
Oh, yeah.
Because he told you that they...
Oh, you could see it. You could feel it. He told us that he was feeling uncomfortable, and I think he was getting ready to ask her for a divorce. Well, she didn't want a divorce because if she divorced him, of course, all of the money would leave, the house would leave, and the lifestyle that she had become accustomed to would stop.
He said that he was trying to change the way his funds were, moving stuff around and switching it from one account to another. I don't know if he even got a chance to do that or if he was in the process of doing it. I have no clue.
It sounds as if Stephen was emotionally and financially ready to end things with Lynette. In reviewing the case file, just days before the murder, Stephen transferred a large amount of money into his personal bank account that Lynette didn't have access to. Lynette claimed that transfer was for tax purposes, but could it have really been Stephen trying to cut her off?
Hello?
Hi, is this Bill Wilder?
Yes.
We know that Stephen never actually filed for divorce, but if he was seriously considering it, we wonder if maybe he reached out to his father's probate lawyer for some advice.
I'm calling about a man named Stephen Felts that may have talked to you at some point, some 23 years ago.
Yeah, what happened was I used to live in Edna. I was their family lawyer. One day he came by and he wanted to talk about a divorce. And during the time we were talking, he said he was concerned because he thought his wife was dangerous and his life might be in danger or something. So I told him, we could get a restraining order, and then never did hear from him. A few months later, he had been murdered.
Wow. Now we know that Stephen was actually planning for a divorce, and we now know he was scared of her.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Wilder. You have a good day.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a huge piece of new circumstantial evidence, and he is what I like to call a jackpot witness.
Nice. That was a good one.
That was a good one. Nice.
Are you ready to begin?
Yeah, what'd y'all find?
Have your tapes.
Oh, and now we can play them?
Yeah.
That's great.
During the initial investigation, the police recovered a recording device that Stephen placed on his own phone to see if he could find out if Lynette was cheating on him. Lucky for us, Officer Guerrero has found a tape that recorded one of Stephen's own phone conversations. We don't get to hear the victim's voice very often, and we are excited to hear what's on this tape.
Hey, what's up? I got bad things going on in my life. My wife ain't been home in 3 days. I'm afraid this is the end of our marriage. I just don't see any other way out. I'm just like, I want out. And I'm looking forward to being away from her. That's all I'm looking forward to.
It would be really nice to have.
This tape is a beautiful piece of evidence because it shows Stephen's state of mind at the time. But there's a legal problem. In order for the tape to be admissible, you have to find someone who can authenticate it. Stephen is dead. So the only other person who can authenticate it is that person he's talking to, and we don't know who that is yet.
You gonna take tomorrow off or what? That's what I've been thinking about.
It's like he's his boss, talking to him.
Trying to think, maybe I get shot or killed tonight. Well, my wife's got a gun. That's what's scaring me. Because I have a pistol, and I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it. I know she's got it, and that's kind of scaring me. You never know, a crazy woman with a gun, you got to kind of worry about things like that.
It's unclear which pistol Stephen is talking about, but it's possible that that pistol's our murder weapon. It's also horrifying to think that he might have predicted his own murder. Now more than ever, we got to figure out who he's talking to.
I'll talk to you in the morning. Okay, man. Bye.
And this tape right here is all the things we want. The gun's missing, she's lost it, I'm getting divorced, I'm done, I'm over it. This is beautiful. This could be Mark Sample, don't you think?
While he didn't remember this conversation when we were talking to him earlier, we're thinking that Stephen could have been talking to his supervisor, Mark Sample. There's only one way to find out.
Okay, so get these conversations emailed to Mark Sample. Okay. He didn't have to remember it. As long as he can say, that is my voice, this is admissible in court. Okay. Thank you. That's wonderful. Yes, please let it be him.
How old is this guy, do you know?
Henderson, he has got to be pushing.
I was thinking like great with Jesus.
While we wait to hear back from Stephen Felt's old boss, it's time we turn our focus onto Stacy Booker and Alfred Hinton as suspects in this case.
There he comes.
There he is. It's got to be that truck right there.
Shortly after Stephen's murder, Stacy Booker attempted to sell some of Stephen's belongings to a friend of his by the name of Alan Henderson.
I want to talk to you a little bit about Big Boy. We know that he tried to sell you some of Stephen Phelps's music equipment.
Right. He had asked me if I wanted to buy some of that stuff.
Okay. And you did you look at any of it?
Didn't even see it.
They never saw it.
Never even looked at it.
Did you see Lynette whenever he came up?
I've never met Lynette.
Do you ever remember him having a gun of any sort?
No. But he did try to borrow one.
What kind of gun did he try to borrow?
My grandfather is an ex-chief police at Richmond. Now, he had a gun. And Big Boy was like, could you get down? I'm like, no, I'm not getting Grandpa's gun.
Did you ask him what he needed a gun for?
Yep.
What did he say?
Need to take care of some business.
Well.
So, I mean, huge flags. It wasn't too long after he had that conversation with me that this happened.
That Stephen got murdered.
Right.
Did you ever just ask him if he did it?
Never did.
Never did, eh?
Did you ever talk to him much
Scared
after
to
that?
death of him. That dude was 5 times my size.
We've learned that shortly before Stephen's murder, he noticed that a pistol was missing and believed that Lynette may have taken it. This witness makes you wonder if Lynette took it and gave it to Stacy.
You can see your flirting skills at work today.
He likes them young.
Yep.
Lynette was 30 years younger than him.
We initially considered that Lynette could have just been using Stacy to get rid of Stephen's stolen guns. Now it feels like Stacy could have pulled the trigger. But we're still unclear about Alfred Hinton's possible involvement.
How you doing, sir?
I ain't got no wife.
So you don't have to worry about no problem.
Lynette said they only had sex after Stephen's death. But if they were having an affair, could Alfred have wanted to silence Stephen to keep the affair a secret and help Lynette get out of her marriage?
You knew Lynette, and you also knew Stacy Booker.
Yeah, Stacy worked for me. They were friends. And so I met her through Stacy.
Okay.
What happened to him, that was unique.
What happened to who?
Her husband. He was at home and somebody broke in there and killed him.
And how'd you find that out?
Oh, from Lynette and Stacy.
They were talking about it?
Yeah.
Did they
Well,
ever
she
tell
went
you
home
about
and
it?
found out, you know, somebody had broke in the house and killed him.
They interviewed Lynette a couple of times.
Probably did. She should have been a suspect. But anyway.
And what makes you say that?
Well, your husband get killed. You know.
You could tell things weren't right at home because why was she hanging around over here?
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
The night before Stephen Phelps ends up murdered in his own living room, guess where Lynette spent that night? Here, on your property, at your house. That's where she is the night before. So what we're trying to figure out is the night before Stephen ends up dead, who is Lynette talking to out here? You or Stacy?
Probably most likely with Stacy. But don't get me wrong, I don't see Stacy, it just means, this is an opinion, to put that package together.
He's not smart enough.
Ma'am?
He's not smart enough, you're saying.
That's my thinking.
She is.
She is. Maybe so.
What if Lynette told Stacy Stephen had $300,000 of insurance money? Would that motivate Stacy?
Could have been.
Alfred initially downplayed how well he knew Stacy and Lynette. Today he's being more forthcoming, and it could be because so much time has passed, could be because his wife has passed away.
So when they interviewed Lynette, they asked her about you. And she mentioned that at one point y'all had a thing going on.
No. I was like a parent to them.
Let me show you this.
Okay.
Did you have an affair with Mr. Hinton? After Stephen's death, yes, I did. So Lynette admits y'all did have an affair.
No more than a friendly affair. Not nothing personal.
Well, you need to know is that Lynette's husband had a tape recorder hidden in the attic that recorded all the phone calls she made.
Yep.
So we got tapes of you talking to her.
Yeah.
Flirting with her.
Yeah, playing.
You're a pretty good flirt too, Mr. Hinton.
Well.
So it sounds like y'all have something going on.
If you want to call it flirting or whatever.
But she says y'all had sex.
No, ma'am. We never did go into that.
Alfred is denying that he ever slept with Lynette, but Lynette told the police they did. Why would she do that? Because it made her look like more of a suspect. Did you have anything to do with the murder of Stephen Phelps, Mr. Hinton?
Me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay.
I had no need in any form or fashion.
You said you never even met the man.
No, ma'am.
Never even met him.
Oh, I've never seen him.
Never laid eyes on him.
I don't even know how he looked.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Hinton, you have a good day, okay?
Alfred is frustrating, but he also didn't say anything today to make us feel like he's involved in this.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
How are y'all?
We've spoken to our suspect, Alfred Hinton, who didn't say anything that gives us any evidence that he's involved in this. So today, we're going to approach Stephen's wife, Lynette Phelps.
I do have an update. Mark Sample wrote me back, and he confirmed that that's him on that conversation.
That's him on the tape. So Mark Sample says that's him talking to Stephen. Excellent. This is great because Stephen's old boss just confirmed that that was him on the tape.
Well, my wife's got a gun. That's what's scaring me.
Now we can prove in court that Stephen was done with his marriage, he was worried about his missing gun, and he was scared that his wife might kill him. It is beautiful circumstantial evidence, and even better that it's out of Stephen's own mouth. Lynette, she's the real play. So you want to do her, I'm assuming.
Love to do her.
And that's okay with you?
Yeah.
It's time we track down Lynette.
Got to get past the first hurdle, just get her to come talk to us.
Yeah. We've learned that Stephen's marriage to Lynette was falling apart. He was limiting her access to his funds, and further, he was scared for his life.
All right, here we are.
See if the homicide gods are on our side today, buddy boy.
We know from examining the lividity in Stephen's body that he was dead longer than Lynette said he was. And we know that Lynette's friend, Stacy Booker, wound up with Stephen's stolen guns. I can't wait to confront her about that.
Hello, Miss Phelps. I'm a detective at Rosenberg Police Department. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
Got a second to talk to us?
About what?
Well, in the homicide of your husband, I'd like to clear a few things up with you if you got a few minutes.
Okay, what is that?
So tell us a little bit about that night.
I went to go get burgers from Whataburger.
Okay.
And I came home and I found my husband on the couch.
Okay.
And my baby girl was in the house.
She was in the house the whole time? There's nothing else you remember about that night?
No, there's not.
How did you know he was dead when you walked in and saw him?
Because I could see that.
How could you see it? Why didn't you check on it? That would have been normal, wouldn't it, ma'am?
Because if I would have touched him, I know that they would have said that there were my fingerprints were.
You lived there. That would have been normal. How odd is it that Lynette would be afraid to leave her fingerprints on Stephen's body, her husband who she claims to love, and she's afraid to touch him? The medical examiner thinks the body was dead for several hours prior to the time you got back.
I went to Whataburger to get burgers.
And you were gone for 45 minutes at the most?
Because, right,
Well,
because
he was dead before you left.
Stephen was dead before you left.
That's the facts.
Would it surprise you that the people we've talked to said that Stephen was afraid of you at some point there?
I wouldn't believe that.
Why did Stephen transfer all of his money and his direct deposits out of one account into another to keep it away from you? He didn't trust you.
That's not true.
He was getting ready to divorce you. We've already talked to the attorney that he made an appointment with.
That's not true.
So who do you believe did this?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Ms. Phelps, I find that hard to believe.
Well, I'm sure you do.
If you don't have any idea who did it, you would be calling us, telling us what the hell's going on, asking us how come we're not investigating it. Have you done that once?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Why not?
Why
because
not?
I was traumatized by what happened.
Stephen was killed. That was your husband. Did you love your husband?
Yeah, of course I did.
You're not wanting to find the killer?
You're not. How did Stacy wind up with the guns that you said were stolen?
How'd that happen? So come on, Lynette. Please.
I need to call my attorney.
Okay. Can we wait here while you do that?
Lynette called her attorney, and he instructed her not to speak to us anymore. That means we have to shut this down. Think, ma'am. Think. My experience, and in talking with Detective Freeman, we expect true victims to act like victims. I know that sounds simple, but that's what it is. They ask questions. They cry. They want to know what happened to their loved ones. They want to talk a little bit about the life that they had with those persons and how their life has changed. Not Lynette. She doesn't want anything to do with us. If looks could kill, I'd be in the hole right now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have examined all the evidence, spoken to all the witnesses, and now it's time for us to review everything we've learned.
Mr. Hinton was still flirtatious at 84, but do any of us think that Alfred Hinton is the person killing Stephen Phelps?
There was no motive for him. He had money.
Alfred Hinton denied what Lynette told the police about their relationship.
She says y'all had sex.
No, ma'am. We never did go into that.
But we didn't find any evidence that suggests in any way that he played a part in Stephen's murder, so we need to eliminate him.
Mr. Hinton is cleared out of this. Everybody agree?
Yep. Think he needs to go.
All right, deceased Stacy Booker.
He kept asking to borrow a gun.
Did you ask him what he needed a gun for?
Yep.
What'd he say?
Need to take care of some business.
We know that he's covering up for her and lying for her.
He ends up with the stolen guns.
We've learned that Stacy Booker was eager to borrow a pistol in the days right before the murder. And the way Stephen was attacked suggests that his killer was strong.
Just drags him over to the couch. Here comes the gun. Bang.
But most damning of all, Stacy got caught pawning the firearm stolen from the crime scene. Talk about a smoking gun. Stacy had 5 of them.
So Stacy Booker stays up here, even though because he's passed away, he can never be charged. Lynette Phelps.
When she's interviewed by the police, she's saying they had a good marriage, when in fact, we know that Stephen was done. He was looking to get a divorce.
She was getting ready to ask her for a divorce. Well, she didn't want a divorce because if she divorced him, of course, all of the money would leave, the house would leave, and the lifestyle that she had become accustomed to.
She's on the fast track to nowhere if Stephen leaves.
And now you found the divorce lawyer who specifically remembers the fact that Stephen comes in hard determined to get a divorce.
They wanted to talk about a divorce, He thought his wife was dangerous and his life might be in danger.
Her timeline, where she said she was only gone 45 minutes, got the science to prove that she's lying.
Lividity on the front part of his torso is fixed. So it had not just happened when she comes home.
She doesn't grab her daughter to come outside and wait for the police, not knowing that the killer could still be in the house.
I mean, that's stupid.
Best witness against Lynette herself. How did you know he was dead when you walked in and saw him? Why didn't you check on him?
Because if I would have touched him, I know that they would have said that there were my fingerprints were on him.
This case, it's a circumstantial case, and that's all new to me. But we have all these little pieces that when you put them all together, they point to nobody else but Lynette.
You look excited.
I am. I'm excited to ask him to get an indictment for murder.
The Fort Bend County District Attorney Brian Middleton has agreed to come down to listen to SUNY run the whole case down to him. The hope is that they agree that there is sufficient evidence to pursue an indictment against Lynette for the murder of her husband, Stephen.
Chief, you've been waiting a long time to make this day happen, and she's been working her butt off.
I think you gave a very good presentation. A lot of dots to connect, but I think once you connect the dots, I feel confident that we have enough to go forward.
Great.
The amount of work you guys put into this is impressive, and it'll be a team effort, but we'll continue it on.
Thank y'all very much.
It's our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
All right.
I can see that in the stillness. The only one who's standing there is you.
How are you feeling, girl?
I'm feeling relieved. Glad we got a good conclusion to all of this.
It's a very special occasion because you don't always get to tell them good news.
It's the first cold case I've ever worked, so this whole process has been new for me. Learned quite a bit.
But y'all don't have any more for you to work, though. That's too bad because you're good at it.
It always feels good to have good news to tell a victim's family member. And SUNY and I are so excited to be able to tell Mona that this case is finally moving forward.
I've been worrying all week, huh?
A little bit.
Well, we have been talking to a lot of people. We met with the district attorney's office and went over everything that we've compiled up to this point. They agreed with us that there is more than enough to present it in front of a grand jury.
Well, I'm filled with a lot of gratitude. I'm hopeful now. I mean, I'm allowing myself now. You're all
allowing yourself to be hopeful. You can be hopeful sometimes.
Okay. There is no happy ending. That possibility ended with his life. But I'm grateful that we have a chance for some justice. Thank you. Thank you both. It means a lot.
Everybody needs a sister like you.
That's a wonderful compliment.
Yeah, work hard.
Stephen Phelps was a really good man, a loving husband, and a wonderful father. And after 24 years, it feels good to finally be able to tell his family that the case is finally moving forward, and maybe now they can finally have a little more peace.
It's hard.